Napa know-how.
The Napa guy knows not to judge a man by his car's multicolored paint job or absence of modern gadgetry. Who cares if it's technically old enough to vote and the windows are powered by the strength of your left arm? Your monthly payment is zero, and it'll stay that way. Because with over 500,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep anything on the road. She may not be pretty, but she's all yours. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. You've reached Venus Unplugged, and this is your host, Llorraine Neithardt. And what we do here, the Venus Unplugged, or what I am attempting, is to evoke or to drag you out of yourself and into your own heart, into the hearts of others, to understand and experience this archetypal energies of Venus in her infinite variety. And what we will be doing over the next couple of weeks is the alchemy of love. And what is that going to be about? At first, this morning, I was going to talk about beauty. And then, of course, in the last minute, something said, no. Let's get into the alchemy of love, the mysteries. And because love is the one thing that, makes the world go round, not to mention the pulse of the cosmos. And with this image of the archetypal Venus, whose sun is Eros, the energy that is in and through all of us and the cosmos, it kind of connects us. I guess in some ways Eros would be the gravity of love, the thing that holds life and us together. And so we, in the alchemy, what we're going to be looking at the next couple of weeks is the mysteries of love, and then the sorrows of love, and then the wisdom of love. Now, romantic love, where did it start? We didn't always have romantic love. It's probably about 400 years old. It's not really with us. The personal romantic love, where you would choose a person out of your own heart, only to find out you're choosing a person out of your own unconscious projections. And there's even a greater mystery about that. But romantic love in the West started with the troubadours. And Eleanor of Aquitaine was one of the first female troubadours. So in her court, she was a poet, and they would write kind of, I guess it was the hip-hop of that time and that court. And it was when the knights would choose their lady fair to devote all their bravado and love and devotion to. And, then things got a little out of hand. There was a lot of running around and carrying on and acting out. And so they needed to shift the way of the court of love into making it an abstraction, that you would honor this lady, this who was basically the projection of the man's anima, that he would do anything for her. So this began to play out. Then gradually it became romantic love. We're working with some relatively new energy within the psyche. It's natural to love, but even that, the actual, it was 2,000 years ago, when Christ came in with at least in the Western world, with the concept of love, which had to be totally nerve-wracking. Like, what's this dude talking about? Kill or be killed. Not love. So love is a developmental stage. And in these developmental stages, the psyche, the collective unconscious, which is the sum total of the entire world, of this world, that knows all. Some people would see it in a sense as the Akashic records, the records of past lives. The they that we talk about is the collective unconscious. So this chink in the armor of collective unconscious, which is romantic love, you choose somebody to devote your strengths and your honoring, and was particularly with the troubadours, this poetry, songs, and just what this person would inspire, or just the thought of this person. So that was the beginning of romantic love. The projections. Before it was just arranged. It was property arranged, or that was in court life, all right. But in another life, yes, it was practicality. You had a farm, you needed a strong woman who could give children, or whatever it was. There was a more pragmatic survival, which is a form of love. So in this next couple of weeks, working on the alchemy of relationships, what we're going to start looking at now is the mystery of love. Love is an archetype. It has its own character. It has its own traits and its own personality and its own crooked little path, as we all have fallen into that path and been hopefully transformed. Even the worst relationship on the planet brings transformation. And then that's what it's about, to have this transformation, to change from one to another. Or sometimes one has to learn absolute forgiveness, but also get away. Not forgiveness and keep on going back into something that's abusive, but just say, oh, I get it. Actually, this hurts me. And if it hurts me, the natural response is to pull away. The natural response is to go within yourself. And when we go within ourselves, we begin to ask questions. So the mystery of love and the archetype of love, it's like a god. And love behaves as a separate being in the psyche, acting as a force from within, urging us towards union. And for those of you that know somewhat of the language of alchemy, one of the most important things of alchemy is we're transforming the black. We're transforming the shit. We're transforming the shadow within ourselves. And the transformation is by becoming conscious. So this feeling called towards love, or about love, or what we think it is, it's one kind of big scrambled egg in there. What we feel our rights are. People can believe that you can possess a loved one, and they were born to do your bidding. Well, that's a short-lived experience, although sometimes people get caught in that and they can't feel their way through because they don't know what they value. They're overwhelmed and flooded with archetypal material that they never knew they had. That's why it's called fall. We fall in love. We don't ascend. And falling in love is an enormous loss to the ego, because everything just flows away. Now, unfortunately, most people do not know how to stay in that surrender long enough to get the transformation or get. They'll only like, oh yeah, no, that was just like, well, that was just a one night stand, and no, I didn't really, and off to the next, and they don't stay with it because it's a heroic act, loving and being loved, because so much it brings out the best in us. It brings out the wound in us. It brings out the child and the crone and the wise one and the fool, and it's all up for examination. That's the power of what happens in relationships, especially in the beginning, the fall. You're aware, and it doesn't matter what age, and it doesn't matter that it's going to be a sexual union. It can be you fall in love with someone's artwork, which is an aspect of themselves, or you actually meet the artist and you realize, wow, this person is really living what it is that they're creating, or dancing, or poem, or anything that will evoke the imagination. Because love is divine imagination. We never felt that before. We fall in love suddenly, we're poets. We begin to see the world in a form we never saw it as. Now, if it's unfortunate, we will allow the ego to take over and just go, oh, that's just silly. That's just ridiculous, and I'm not going to allow myself to do this. Or we do the opposite of that, which is we ask the beloved to carry our soul. This is particularly terrifying to men. They have no idea what we're talking about. You're my beloved. You're my soul. Chill that a little bit. Let that live in another way. You carry that. People like the sound of that, but the intensity of that takes time to ask of the other. My soul? We don't give that away so easily. We get affected by it. But, there's soulmates, and, if you're into soulmates, the truth of the matter is calling in a soulmate is really tricky business. Because the soulmate, you've got ancient history, and they can trick out, things will be coming up inside of you that you never knew. So people think it's all sweetness and light, and it's just the opposite. It's a wild ride. You need to remember, the soul is immortal. It's actually not human. It has eternity, and it knows that. And so when we project that soul, that immortality, it's too great of a burden for any human being to carry. But we put a romantic spin on it, but we have no idea the dangerous territory we are in. Now, the things that make us human, the courage or wisdom or insight or sensitivity or weakness or, ignorance, all those things that make us human, those are not soul qualities. Those are human qualities. The quality of the soul is immortal. It has infinity. And that's why it's not so caught up in life or death. Either way, it knows it's immortal. And people don't realize that. So, stop and think. The soul gets stirred. The psyche gets stirred. And we do, when we fall in love, we do open up to a field, an alchemical field of infinite possibilities. It's an enormously creative act, just one that we know. And then, after the stage of projection, then we start to work on the relationship. And basically, the work on the relationship is to get the other person to be what we want them to be. Instead of the true humbling work of who is this alien, this complete other that my heart is smitten by. That's what I mean by the danger. And that's why it takes many years to be in relationship with people. I'm talking about friends. I'm talking about children. Any male, female, male, transgender, whatever it is, it makes the world go round. This thing, this Venusian energy. So when we feel, sometimes when we're starting a relationship, and that is the romantic stage of relationships, and when that's over, that's usually give or take 6 months, if we get that far. If we get to the kind of this isn't like an absolute law. It's an observable truth. And by the 6th month, you kind of know whether you can take a life of this person or want to be around them, or that's when you drop the projection. Because quite frankly, none of us would go into this willingly. And usually we get attracted to our own inferior function. And it drives us crazy. Why does this person do this way? Because that's where your blind spot is. So it's an amazing journey, and it is alchemy. Because so much what we don't know about ourselves is carried not only in the projection, but in the nature of the other person. So if you're a feeling type, feelings are what we value, how we give value to something or a person, very often, fall for a sensei type. They just want to know the facts. And you're like, but what about the feeling? And it's like, but what about the facts? So the feeling type would feel, with the sensei type, the facts. It's like, well, once you get to the facts, that's the end of the story. There's nothing else going on. But with a feeling, we can put tons of energy into that feeling or lightness. And so that's an alchemical tension of the opposites there. Because the feeling person can go on and on and on, but needs the facts. The fact may be, I just fell in love with a married man. That's a fact. No, but I'm his soulmate. But you're still, the fact is, that person is married. And that has to be part of what you're looking at. Because it will bring its own sorrow or its own mystery. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at, what is this great mystery that brings people together? Or you'll meet a couple and you'll think, wow, that's not a matching set. And yet, if you observe through your heart, not your thinking function, through your heart, you'll see how they can complement one another or how one will carry the other's shadow. He's such a nice guy and she's such a bitch. Not really. She's carrying his negative anima. And we don't even know that we're doing it. So this observation of love, and the energy, feelings are what we value. We can burden love enormously. wanting that person to be our all, to be our God. There will be people that you'll meet and you think, dang, this is totally going to break my heart. But I'm going to go for it anyway because my heart will be broken, but it'll be a little wiser, it'll be a little more open, and what is breaking to is its limitations. And sometimes we fall helplessly. As I said, it's a fall, it's a collapse. We never knew we had this inside of us. Same can happen in art and creativity. We just become absolutely smitten with an act of creativity. And we repeat it again and again and again. Just like love. It's infinite. And so with the mysteries, it's the way we feel. What is it? And the way that we feel our way through one another, through this mystery of human beings, to this, our greatest pastime is storytelling. Storytelling about one another, storytelling about love. We never tire of this journey of becoming human. This journey of our raw energy and forces being developed, both on an emotional level, on a psychic level, on an intellectual level, physical, all these levels. This is what makes us human. So in the story of love and the heartache and the blood and the feuds and the tears and the wisdom and the journey, are you ready? Because you're in it. If you're not feeling it, you're denying it. People want the fall, but we're always in a state of love or the denial of love. But the denial of love is still love. People, the task of loving, the task of loving is the relationship that is going on within you. And the more you work on your own integration, you love anybody deeply, fully, wholly, just as another human being. They don't have to be your knight in shining armor. That all comes from, the beginning stages of romantic love. And they're going to come in and change it all, or magically. Life does get better because it gets deeper and stronger and in some ways more dangerous. Because the danger is we need to transform the shadow, the stuff we don't know about ourselves, into gold, into consciousness, into awareness. And when the beloved enters, guaranteed something's going to shift. Or you may, because if you're or have a personality or a task, or this is your nature, is to grow, and the beloved doesn't want to grow, it's like, what's the matter with you? You used to be such a nice person. But I want to grow. I want something else to happen. I want to understand something deeper. And they don't want to grow. Well, that's a lot of pain. So after the 6 months, when we realize, wow, that's really an annoying habit, then you've hit the first stage of loving. No more projection. And usually, the projection ends very rudely. Suddenly, the person disappoints or has to cancel at the last minute, and rather than understanding, you're devastated. The reason you're devastated is you didn't make conscious all the fantasies you had. And so your world collapses. And they don't understand. It's like, well, there's no biggie. We can do it tomorrow. Or I'll see you in 3 weeks when I get back. And you're left with all of these unconscious fantasies. Now, if you can, after you get yourself up off the floor and you're so disappointed, or you'll rather than feel the disappointment, you'll cut a piece of yourself out and away. I'm not going to feel that. I'm not going to be vulnerable to anybody. You're not being vulnerable to them. You're being vulnerable to the dignity and the beauty of your own self and those sweet fantasies and longings, love's longings that are coming up in you. That is fabulous energy for transformation. And if you can say, you know what, okay, I'm deeply disappointed, I may be enraged, whatever it might be, whatever the emotional response, but I'm going to make these fantasies conscious. And very often we find out that who's running the fantasy train into reality is the inner child, the 5-year-old. All right? So often the 5-year-old can take over if we don't know what's going on. And there's usually, a lot of trouble if we don't know. Wait a second, the 5-year-old wants it to be Christmas, or wants everything to be the golden way and the castle and all of that. The fairy tale. If you've really ever studied fairy tales have a lot of evil and a lot of moral teachings in it. Fairy tales is not, in the Disney version, that's not the alchemy of love. That's not the mystery. So we know the projection falls when that level of disappointment comes up. And that is your moment. That is your task. If you can hold on to it just 30 seconds longer than about to react. I'm not saying not to react. Put the reaction in a ritual form. Say, okay, I'm going to roll on the floor and scream and yell and and beat the drums and beat my heart and for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to get up. And I'm going to see what is this unknown aspect of myself that just came up. When people fall in love, their greatest mystery is like, what? I never felt this before. What am I supposed to do with this? It's always been there, but suddenly it's conscious. Now, if there's too much ego, the ego is going to, and there's nothing wrong with the ego. We need the ego to function in reality, but we don't let it take everything over, because the ego has usually a mistaken identity where it does think it's God. It's not. Suddenly this mystery, and that's what it really is. It's being able to stand very often silently in the mystery of love. Or you meet somebody and you feel that movement, and it automatically becomes a history class in your life. Wait till somebody knows you a little bit, who you are now. Don't start giving them the family history and your days in rehab or whatever. They haven't earned that yet. You don't know if they can listen. You don't know what that is about. It's being able to express the wonderment and the horror and the terror, but staying with these feelings. If you can hear yourself and realize, like, oh, that's my fantasy. This person isn't capable of that. That's not what they can do. And yet we want that. And in general, in most relationships, men really do want to please women. They don't know what the hell we're talking about, with our version, and then we do the soulmate trip, and, where this, that they don't understand. They do understand, a task, something that they can do for the beloved. Most of the time, unless they're really twisted, they want to do that. And if we ask from our heart, not the negative animus that just is opinionated, no man could take that one. The romantic love and the mystery is there for all of us to stand in mystery. So this week, maybe ask yourself, what's the task that the love is asking of you, or even the not love. So it doesn't get to be in a state of being in love. It's what has it? Look at your relationships. What is it asking? What does it need? Where do you need to soften or correct or understand or empathy, or accepting that a person's not capable of empathy? Or that, like I said, the intuitive type and the thinking type. The intuitive makes just quantum leaps, and the thinking says, "How did you get to that?" Those two, you get attracted to one another too. So it's always about the opposites. But that person has come into your life by a divine plan through the unconscious. We draw that in, because that's the next stage. And sometimes that stage takes a lifetime, and sometimes we can do it in, a day. So this mystery, start thinking about and how uncomfortable it is. We want the answer. Do you love me? Well, that's not really a loving question. That's a question of power. Feel it. See what's going on. So this is what we're going to be working with, the mysteries of love. And either sign up on Blog Talk Radio so you can get these immediately, and we're ready to roll. Bye.